Multiple sclerosis is the most common immune-mediated disease that affects the central nervous system. It can range from occasionally disabling to completely devastating in day-to-day life. There are 4 types of MS: relapsing remitting MS, secondary progressive, primary progressive, and progressive relapsing. And MS is seen to be twice as common in women than in men. MS attacks are like someone scaring you, where you feel the effects like, say, rapid heart rate and sweaty palms for a while after the initial scare, but they disappear once you know you're not in any real danger. MS attacks act in a similar way, where the symptoms dissipate post-attack, but unlike the scare, the neurological and physical damage still remain. So it all starts with the central nervous system. The central nervous system is composed of 2 parts, the brain and the spinal cord. But we'll be focusing specifically on the brain. The brain is a complex network of neurons that receive and relay signals to and from the body. And the central nervous system can be divided in many ways, but one way to separate it is into its gray and white matter. Where gray matter is the outer surface of the brain, composed of many neuronal cell bodies, few of which are myelinated, and white matter is the deeper tissue, which contains the myelinated neurons and less of the cell bodies, which myelin has a white color, hence the name white matter. So a difference, other than the composition and color, is the function of each matter. Gray matter is responsible for the body's senses and partial control of muscles, whereas white matter actually provides the communication pathways, coordination pathways, and complex and quick thinking. Gray matter acts as the short side roads of the brain, where signals take longer, and where white matter acts as the fast highways of the brain, where signals are fast due to the myelinated neurons. So overall, white matter is important because any damage to white matter alters brain function, which results in many numerous neurological diseases, including MS. The science behind MS is where the insulative layer of myelin that usually coats the axons within this white matter is destroyed, which leads to motor and sensory disruption, aka where these highways are now slowed or removed. Lastly, the symptoms of multiple sclerosis include an altered brain function leading to fatigue, unstable mood, and cognitive impairment, vision problems like optic neuritis and diplopia, or partial and full blindness, muscular weakness, cramping, loss of control and spasms, overall dysfunctional senses like pins and needles, and an increased or decreased sensitivity, and overall lack of coordination and motility difficulties.
Although the cause is still relatively unknown, there are a few potential factors which are seemingly linked to the onset of multiple sclerosis, or MS. For example, females have a greater risk of developing MS, as do those with infections. Another potential cause is the lack or a deficiency of vitamin D. This deficiency of vitamin D being linked to multiple sclerosis is validated, as there is a higher prevalence of MS further away from the equator, as you can see by this figure here. The bioactive form of vitamin D, known as calcitriol, is known to regulate immune response and also modulate T and B cell differentiation. From a pathological standpoint, MS is characterized by damage and inflammation of the myelin. This damage is essentially self-inflicted, as the immune cells, or the T cells in this case, can squeeze past the blood-brain barrier, or BBB, then they can't attack the myelin because they think it is a foreign invader. And just to recap, the blood-brain barrier is a highly specific border that is made of endothelial cells, and this typically refuses passage of unknown or unrecognized cellular constituents through it. In this simplified drawing of a neuron on the right side, you have the myelin in black, the axon in red, and the dendrite in orange. Following the attack of the T cells on the myelin, they produce cytokines such as IL-6 and IL-1, and these promote the degradation of the blood-brain barrier. And they can also recruit B cells and macrophages. Here they're shown by B and M. So now the B cells and the macrophages can come in through the weakened blood-brain barrier and further degrade the myelin. The B cells produce antibodies, which essentially mark the myelin sheath for degradation. The macrophages are essentially responsible for eating parts of myelin, which again contributes to the degradation of myelin. So essentially in MS, there is clustering of the immune cells in the brain, which results in neuroinflammation and neurodegeneration, which leads to the symptoms previously discussed.
Current breakthroughs in MS has been working on a drug called orbezazole. This drug passed clinical trials in 2017 and focuses on the lithobetacytes, which it binds to the antigen, the CD20 antigen of the beta lithocytes, and transforms the beta lithocytes into pre-beta cells and immature beta cells. This is done by the CD20 antibody binding to the lithobetacytes and then changing the pre and immature to naive and memory beta cells. This allows for the inactivation of the harmful cells that lead to the degradation effects of MS. More recent research has focused on the remyelination of neurons. This is done through oligodendrocytes that allow for the remyelination of neurons. Demyelination is both seen in MS and age, as both lose the function to allow for the oligodendrocytes to remyelinate neurons. New research using metformin has shown a reversal in age and MS in the oligodendrocytes. Future treatments on treating MS should focus on the remyelination of neurons. This can be done through drugs such as metformin and others, as it would allow for the stopping and may allow for the reversal of MS in patients that take these types of drugs. Another future direction is focusing on stopping damaging cells crossing the blood-brain barrier into the CNS, and this would allow for the elimination of the progression of the disease and protect the patient.